This is the OnePlus 8 Pro, and I've been using this phone for a few weeks now as my main phone or daily driver, and spoiler alert, it's become one of my favourite phones I've ever used and easily the flagship that I'd recommend to most people. So let's find out why. By the way, if you do go on to enjoy this video, give it a thumbs up down below. I make lots of content on camera gear and mobile tech, so if you're into that sort of stuff, hit that subscribe button down below to be notified when I come out with more content. One of the things that really stands out about this phone is its 6.7-inch OLED Quad HD Plus 120Hz display, and honestly it's really good. This has kind of become standard in flagship phones to have these kind of displays, but something about this phone really stands out. It's bright, it's vibrant, and it could be one of the best displays I've ever seen in a phone. The edges do curve over still slightly, and manufacturers are moving away from this a little bit, but it's still my preferred design, and they're not curved enough that you're going to get those accidental button presses that people complain about. And also, side note, you do get motion smoothing on this, which is a setting that OnePlus have added, which basically converts any video into a video that will play smoother on a 120Hz display. Now obviously the warning is that you're not going to be viewing it the way the creator intended it, so most people will have this off, and camera buffs that are watching this are probably shouting at me right now, but I keep it on just because I like smoothness and I'm just interested to see how it works. One thing that OnePlus have omitted from the screen though, and this comes more down to software than the actual display itself, is an always on display. OnePlus have said that they're working on it and it's coming, so let's hope they implement it well enough that it's worth it. But at the moment, obviously, other phones in the flagship category all have this always on display, so it's a shame not to see it on the OnePlus 8 Pro. The good thing about this OnePlus display, and probably more the software, is that you can set it to Quad HD Plus at 120Hz, whereas on the Samsung flagships at the moment, you have to choose between 120Hz and Quad HD Plus. You can't have both at the same time. This can be a bit of a drain in battery, obviously, but if you do run out, you do get 30-watt fast charging, which charges about 50% in about 25 minutes. But with that 4500 mAh battery and the Snapdragon 865, you should be getting through a full day with this phone. Talking about that Snapdragon, OnePlus have always tried to make their phones the fastest, and this is no different. The Snapdragon 865 with the 8GB of RAM just makes this one of the snappiest phones I've ever used. It's just quick at everything from heavy tasks to multiple apps open at the same time, and it never stutters or struggles. There is definitely a noticeable speed increase and noticeable battery life increase between this and the Exynos version of the Samsung S20, but I've not used the Snapdragon version of the S20 yet, so I can't speak for that. Even the charging is lightning fast, and talking of charging, we've got the wireless charging now on this device, and that again is up to 30 watts, but you do have to use their proprietary charger to do it. But who knows, maybe OnePlus will pass it technology on to third parties. Third parties will come up with chargers that are maybe a little bit cheaper than the 70 quid wireless charger that OnePlus is offering for the OnePlus 8. Regardless though, this is something that OnePlus fans have been waiting for a very long time. And another such thing is IP68 water resistance. Previously OnePlus have left it out of their phones, maybe to save costs, but maybe their phones weren't exactly water resistant in the first place. But you do get that in the OnePlus 8 Pro. I would have definitely preferred to have the volume keys on the right, and that alert slider is a little bit too easy to switch sometimes, so I would be worried that I'll be switching it to ring volume in the middle of a meeting or something, because it is quite easy if you're just fiddling with your phone just to switch that slider by accident. Perhaps the main thing that has stopped people from going over to OnePlus though, and the thing that's maybe stopped it from becoming that flagship killer that it's always wanted to be, is those cameras. Spoiler alert, that all changes this year. There's 4 cameras on the back of the OnePlus 8 Pro, and for the most part they're on par with the likes of Samsung and Huawei flagships, and they're sort of up there competing with the iPhone 11. They do stick out from the main body quite a bit, which does give it that table wobble, but you can get some cases for the phone that will make it a bit more bearable, and OnePlus actually include one in the box, which is quite nice. Photos are sharp and vibrant, which I like, and the portrait mode works really well. I'd say the colours are very similar to Samsung, as they like to make them punchier and less true to life, but this does make them more pleasing to the eye. There doesn't feel like a huge quality difference going into ultra wide from the main camera, but that's because we do have that 48 megapixel ultra wide, which is awesome. They have gone with the 8 megapixel telephoto lens though, which is fine as that's arguably the least used camera, but in the telephoto lens the quality difference as well as a bit of colour shift is noticeable. And all these cameras perform very well, except that weird colour shift camera that can see through some electricals and to an extent some clothes. I have no idea why this was added in. I would have much rather had a cheaper phone without that in, and it feels like they just added it in to call it a quad camera setup. Video is also really good and goes up to 4K 60 frames a second, And the image stabilization is one of the best I've tested so far, although that is only available in up to 30 frames per second 4K. So OnePlus have really put a lot of work and R&D into these cameras, so they're not exactly the Achilles heel of the phones anymore. Don't get me wrong, there's still some work to be done on these cameras. Sometimes I'll take a photo and it's a little bit mushy or weird, sometimes it's out of focus, and that color shift camera I just couldn't get to focus at all. So there's definitely work to be done, but overall I'd say it definitely is on par with modern flagships. Other than that, the software is the usual from OnePlus. It's the latest version of Android with the Oxygen OS skin over the top. Oxygen is great for people who don't want so much bloat and prefer a more stock Android experience. And I can't do a review without talking about the price. I know reviewers tend to stay away from the price because it's different in different countries, but I'll talk about the UK price and where I think it stands in the market right now. So this version of the OnePlus 8 Pro, which comes with 8GB of RAM and 128GB of storage, is £799, whereas the equivalent from the Samsung Galaxy S20 Plus is £899. I wouldn't say there's much about the Samsung that makes it worth that extra £100, unless you're really invested in a Samsung UI and you've used Samsung for a few years, which, for the record, is a situation I'm in. But for anyone else, the OnePlus presents a much better value proposition. And that's why it's probably going to become my most recommended phone so far for 2020 for most people who want a small to medium sized flagship phone with all the features, especially those in Europe who would have to deal with the Exynos chip if they went over to Samsung. So you really can't go wrong with a OnePlus 8 Pro. Having said that, that's it from me. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you want to see more content like this, hit that subscribe button down below. I make lots of videos on camera gear and mobile tech. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.